Hey guy, how are you all beautiful people are doing? Hope all of you are doing fine, and yes, this is the next season of creating Naruto comics in Naruto world. Akaban was graduated from the University of Arts and Design in the 21st century, then suddenly traversed into the Naruto's world. By bringing my knowledge of arts and my love of Naruto comic, I decided to recreate Naruto comic here. So let's start without any delay. Do you have 100 million Ryo? The strange ninja looks at the book, then throws away the corpse in his hand like a rag, and asks the man who calls himself Hawkeye. This man is stupid. If he has 100 million Ryo, then why is he here sitting while saying hi to everyone? But seeing the killing intent in the strange ninja's eyes, if he answers no, he will definitely die like a corpse on the ground. Since you have no money, you can't buy your own life. After Kakuzu finished speaking, his hands squeezed and directly crushed the man's throat. Gudong tilde. Everyone swallowed at the same time, and a few quietly touched the door, but with a sneer from Kakuzu, they all stopped and didn't dare to go forward half a step. A terrifying murderess. Who issued this wanted order? Kakuzu asked coldly. Dear guests, these two are just posters, not real wanted warrants. The reason for posting them is that this comic called One Piece is set in the background of pirates, and it was posted to the door. A teenager came out of the counter, his face pale in fright, but he still mustered the courage to explain. Kakuzu are lost in thought. Obviously, this tavern doesn't look like it can afford more than 100 million Ryo, and there is really no way to blackmail them as he won't receive anything in return. Comic, is this the thing in this brat hand? He glanced at it and then frowned slightly. When he came to this country before, they didn't have these things at all. Dear guest, Keochuan town has changed thanks to this comic. If you are interested, you might as well sit down and read while drinking. I will pay for today's wine if you're interested. Akaban said as he stood up. Although he didn't want to intervene, if Kakuzu demolished this place, he needed to find suitable subordinates for his bindings. Moreover, the person in charge of this tavern knows how to set up a cultural tavern according to local conditions. He is also a very talented person. It's a pity if they died here. Kakuzu didn't care at first, but when Akaban stepped closer, he suddenly felt a threat instinctively. He is an expert. He looked carefully at Akaban, wearing a sword around his waist. Although he didn't wear a headband, he was more inclined to the style of hidden mist. He can feel that the opponent's chakra is very strong, and it makes him feel very uneasy. Master, this wine, the money for wine, you don't need to pay for it. Today, everyone's wine is paid for by our restaurant. The little boy got closer and looked even more nervous. But even if he was nervous and scared, he didn't shrink back, standing in front of him and talking to Kakuzu and Akaban. Yes, are you new here? Akaban admired him more and more. What a courageous boy. With a little training, he doesn't know how strong this boy will become, but there is absolutely no problem in operating the restaurant and the site here. You are? The boy was a little unclear. He came here for more than a month, but he had never seen the ninja in front of him. Let your boss come here to see me. Akaban said a little, and then sat down directly across from the corner of the table. Kakuzu moved his fingers, forcibly holding down the desire to shoot. Suppressed his killing intent, as he started collecting information. Akaban knew it, and then took the wine bottle, poured a glass for Kakuzu, and said in a low voice, "We are all here for money and survival. Now Konoha and Sand Village have arranged a lot of manpower in Keochuan. It's not good for anyone to make a big scene here. What he said was half admonition, half threat. If Akaban is not strong enough, Kakuzu will definitely kill him after saying that to him, but he couldn't shake off the feeling of ominousness and danger from the other party, so he didn't dare to make a move carelessly. Forget it, I'm here to make money and don't care about him. Kakuzu snorted coldly, picked up the comic and started reading it. The young man was very sensible, and immediately brought a complete set of one-piece comics to the corner for him to read and appreciate. Seeing that the manslaughter rogue ninja did not do anything, the others breathed a sigh of relief and quickly fled the tavern. Therefore, although it is said that the beverages are free, in fact, the tavern only has two guests: Akaban and Kakuzu. Pirate. Oh, what a bullshit thing. When he first read the first page, Kakuzu said as he sneered. Hidden Waterfall Village is adjacent to Land of Frost, with the sea to the north, so he has seen some pirates, but they are quite weak at all. And they were all just wandering samurai and rogue ninjas. Just like those people on the streets of Kelchuan town now. He turned a few pages, and then gradually became interested. Although it seems a bit boring, it is a good device to spend his days as a pastime. It didn't take long before he finished reading one volume. The plot is pretty good, and it seems to be quite popular in Kelchuan town. The merchant who sells this is probably making a lot of money. Kakuzu had some thoughts in his heart. Before he could speak, Akaban whispered, "I've heard of you. You are the most talented ninja in Hidden Waterfall Village. The strength is also quite strong. I don't know if you are interested in cooperating with me." Oh, cooperation. Kakuzu didn't agree directly, but picked up the second volume and continued reading. He is not stupid. On the contrary, Kakuzu is quite cautious and clever to survive the hunts, otherwise, he would not hold back his killing intent to walk down the steps given by Akaban. How do you feel when you read this comic? Yes, no wonder there are so many stupid wandering warriors. Kakuzu answered indifferently. The increase in wandering warriors obviously has something to do with this comic. This can be seen from the popularity of Zoro and Hawkeye. Akaban nodded slightly and said, "It was transported by a caravan in the country of fire, but now it is not sold yet to the masses. Instead, it is given to us for free. So that we can put it in the tavern for guests to watch for free. I think they will definitely sell in the future. By then, jointly sell books for others." HMPH, what a stupid idea. Kakuzu sneered, dismissing the plan. He is lonely and doesn't need an organization or a base. How can he do business with high-priced orders that want to hunt him down at the black market? Akaban didn't get angry as he smiled and said, "Selling books for others is just a process. When we are strong enough, we can annex the rest of Kelchuan town and let the entire Kelchuan comics be under our control. After that, the entire land of River will be." After reading half of the comic, Kakuzu paused when he heard it, but continued reading the comic after a moment. If it's a country, the benefits are not bad, but the benefits of cooperation don't seem to be that high. After all, for such a large scale, there must be subordinates, and the profit sharing is still not as good as what he was doing. Akaban continued to toss the chips in no hurry, waiting for Kakuzu to finish reading. 1 volume, 2 volumes. After reading the 5 volumes, Kakuzu was lost in thought. He has never encountered this kind of comic, but judging from the popularity it has in Kelchuan town, there are definitely business opportunities. Our business is not necessarily limited to Land of Rivers. As far as I know, the the surrounding countries all purchase from land of rivers. This benefit is not small. Akaban continued to toss the chips. Neither he nor Orochimaru can be permanently stationed in the land of river. If he can recruit a character like Kakuzu, there is no need to worry about the business here. After all, in big organizations like Akatsuki, Kakuzu is the one in charge of their money. It can be seen that although this guy is greedy for money, he is very sensitive about money. The only thing to worry about is that Kakuzu has a high chance of betrayal. This guy was really obsessed with money, but Akaban really didn't care about money, as long as the other party didn't take the foundations of the land of river as his own. If he dared to do this, Akaban would take it unceremoniously. The person in the dark will always have an advantage over the light, and he is the person in the dark. Kakuzu are lost in thought. He loves money, but he doesn't want to be restrained by others, but it doesn't seem to matter if he just cooperates. I'll think it over. After thinking about it, Kakuzu didn't immediately agree, but his attitude was not too cold and tough, and obviously, there was a chance for cooperation to happen. Akaban nodded, not expecting to do this all at once, but he had to guard against this guy's night sneak attack. Kakuzu doesn't have any morals, and the two are jealous of each other. Even if they cooperate, they will not be sincere. So a fight is probably necessary. Kakuzu had another drink and then walked out of the tavern. At this time, the boy and another ninja walked out of the house. The boss here was the ninja who had encountered Akaban and Orochimaru before. Akaban slightly used his perception abilities to detect a strange chakra on the man's body. Is this what Orochimaru is doing? Akaban took a closer look and noticed many similar marks. For example, the man's joints may be modified. It seems that Orochimaru has always strengthened these people. Seeing Akaban's current appearance, the ninja immediately knelt down. My lord, what instructions do you have for coming this time? There may be war between Konoha and Sand in the land of river. You are my hard-earned subordinates. I will be very troubled if you die. Akaban imitated Orochimaru's tone and said faintly, then looked outside the door and continued saying recently, there will be more ninjas like that, so I've been restrained recently. My lord, since the last time you gave the specific plan here, we have all done business in peace, and no brother has gone out to make trouble. He explained quickly. Akaban has a headache. It's Orochimaru again. With so many things he has done sneakily, Keochuan town has been turned into a pirate town. Forget it. He glanced at the back while hypnotizing the boy with him. With his current mental power, hypnotizing these guys is almost easy, and soon they will say all the information in a sing-a-song tune. A few seconds later, he realized what he wanted and activated the hypnosis genjutsu. The two have no opinion, but become more respectful being hypnotized unconsciously by such a powerful genjutsu, worthy as their lord. I just confirmed, Nakigawa, you are doing very well, but your strength is still a little bit worse. Akaban said lightly and then looked at the boy named Naruto. Although the Man Culture Tavern was created by Nakigawa, he has to say that this kid Naruto is also very good, especially in the face of the Kakuzu killing intent. He still dared to stand up and speak. This is quite remarkable. My lord, his name is Araki Naruto. You are also good, do you know chakra? Naruto was shocked and then nodded wildly with ecstasy. Chakra, the power possessed by the great ninja. Nakigawa, from today you are responsible for teaching him to condense chakra. Also prepare a room for me, I want to rest for a while. Yes. Nakigawa is very respectful. Seeing each other again, This lord is stronger than when they first met. No, maybe because he has never seen the real strength of their lord. Nothing is more important than sleeping, but Kakuzu is indeed a problem and needs to be guarded. Akaban thought for a while and split out a shadow clone. In fact, he is not very tired. After all, he has strong physical, mental and vitality. It is not a big problem to be sleepless for a day or two. It is just that the laziness of not sleeping for a night cannot stop him. The shadow clone is uncomfortable. Because he not only has to do the work of the sentry but also has to endure the body sleeping in the bedroom. As for painting, are we such a diligent shadow clone? The shadow clone stayed up until the afternoon until he saw the intruder. A pitch-black tentacle came in through the gap in the window, and then the window was opened with a click, and Kakuzu jumped in from the outside. Later, he saw Akaban sitting there. You really came. If you can earn money by yourself, there is no need to cooperate with others. Kakuzu sneered slightly. He didn't go out just now to explore the market. This thing has already been seen, and no further consideration is needed. His real purpose was to check the strength of the rest of Keochuan town's rebels, as well as the distribution of the surrounding personnel from Konoha and Sand Village, to determine what kind of vigorous battles would not attract this ninja's attention. After a lap of compiling information, he was certain. In Keochuan, the strongest roguenin was the mist hidden in front of him. It seems that you can only be an enemy. The shadow clone sighed softly, and then his hands quickly formed a seal. Hidden mist jutsu. Silent assassination. Ha ha, if you only know this, it would disappoint me too much. Kakuzu sneered, his tentacle soared, and he went all around. With his earth grudge fear secret jutsu, he didn't fear Akaban's hidden mist jutsu. Of course not. Akaban's voice came from the fog. The technique of concealment of the fog is just to prevent Kakuzu from seeing his eyes. From the moment Kakuzu enters the window, Akaban was already awakened. Kakuzu is waiting for it, and the tentacle of earth grudge fear is sweeping all around frantically. However, nothing happened, as the opponent seemed not to attack. While he was puzzled, suddenly 2 or 3 silhouettes appeared beside him. His earth grudge fear quickly attacked, but the other side did not retreat at all, each minding their own business as the silhouette counter-attacked. Kakuzu fought and retreated. However, at this time, the knives became 6 or 9. Although the tentacles of the grievance were strong, they were cut off by an invisible force. In one round of fighting, he had 8 or 9 stab wounds on his body. What is this technique? Kakuzu was shocked. He knew how Hidden Mist's tactics were. Most of them used Hidden Mist jutsu with silent assassination, blade technique, and some water-style ninjutsu to get the killing effect. However, this person is clearly not the case. He seems to use a clone method to replace his injury with the injury of the clone. Although the attack is not a threat, for the time being, this kind of attack for injury is very rogue, and the point is that he didn't even find the other side's main body anywhere. How can I fight back? Kakuzu had many thoughts in his heart, and then 2 mask clones appeared on his body. However, without waiting for the clones to exert their power, they were instantly imprisoned by a jutsu. Kakuto himself couldn't answer the specific jutsu, because he had never seen this kind of ninjutsu. It's too weird. I know that your secret jutsu is the Earth Grudge Fear, Hidden Waterfall Village's former secret jutsu. It seems that you are the one who fought against the first Hokage. Kakuzu. Akaban's voice came from the fog. He didn't show up, because he was fighting against someone like Kakuzu. Once he showed up, he would give the other side a chance to fight back. Although he still has the ability of the right eye as a trump card is a trump card. If it's shown easily, it won't be called a trump card anymore, right? HMPH, I didn't expect anyone to know me. Just like how he felt before, this guy is indeed very difficult to deal with and even has the strength to kill him. Akaban laughed, and then threatened, I heard that the Earth Grudge Fear can absorb other people's power into their own use, and form such a clone, but it seems that the key lies in the mask. If you break it. If you kill my mask, I will use all my strength. Even if I can't kill you, as long as people in Konoha and Sand Village notice, your business won't go on. Kakuzu threatened in turn. You can try if you can before I kill you. As the voice fell, Kakuzu was surprised to find that a chakra appeared inexplicably around him, and he was immediately imprisoned in a water prison jutsu. So that's how it is, my clone is imprisoned by this jutsu. Before he could think about it, he suddenly saw how the saber passed through the water prison jutsu and rested on his neck without a sound. While a kunai also appeared directly aimed at his heart, and a similar thing happened to his mask clone at his side. Kakuzu thought that if wanted to run, Akaban couldn't keep him, but his two cloned masks, plus his own life, was enough for him to lose 3 hearts at the same time. Although wars are frequent now and there are many opportunities to get other ninjas' hearts, but he uses these 3 abilities very well. If not necessary, he has no thought of replacing them. Of course, Kakuzu didn't immediately dock his tail to survive because he knew Akaban was not so determined to kill him. To deal with major countries, I need strong enough partners and subordinates. You are the one who has fought against the first Hokage. Of course, you don't need to ask about my strength. As you have seen it. Akaban removed the ability of his left eye, and then dispersed the mist. He sat in the chair with a calm expression on his face. Although I don't know why I have never heard of you, but you are really strong, and you are barely qualified if you want to cooperate with me. Kakuzu put away the mask of Earth Grudge Fear clones, as he also sat down on the side chair. He likes money. If he can swallow it alone, of course, it's the best, but if he can't solve Akaban now, he can only cooperate. After all, there are not many countries in the ninja world as chaotic as the Land of Rivers, and there are only a handful of countries that are suitable as a transfer station for comics, and it is quite difficult to stand on his own. Then next, let's discuss the distribution of benefits. Akaban didn't care about Kakuzu's aggressive words. As these are meaningless to him, what is really important is that the other party agrees to cooperate and is also very afraid of his own strength. In this way, his plan was successful. On the issue of money, the two quarreled endlessly, and the final bargaining turned into a 6-4 split, with Akaban 6 and 4 for Kakuzu. However, Akaban's comics are sold to Kakuzu and he earns a share from it, and as Kakuzu sells the comics, he can also earn from it. Although it is only 60%, he actually makes far more than Kakuzu. After discussing the issue of dividing money, Kakuzu jumped out of the window. He didn't dare to attack again as Akaban jutsu is quite weird for him. Whether it was the clone, the water prison jutsu, and the sword later, it gave him a very strange feeling. At the time, it was foggy and he couldn't see anything at all. He can only confirm from his Earth Grudge Fear's clone feedback that those are real bodies, not fake genjutsu or clone jutsu. When ninjas fight, intelligence is very important. In this battle, his opponent knew about his secret jutsu, but Kakuzu knew nothing about Akaban. Of course, he would definitely suffer in the end. Even if he exploded with all his strength at the time, he couldn't be sure that Akaban could kill his 5 masks in one breath with that kind of jutsu. If the opponent really had this kind of strength, he would really be over. Before he figured out Akaban's bottom line, Kakuzu didn't dare to make any more moves. After he left, Akaban let out a long sigh of relief. This is the first time he has used Mangekyo Sharingan in battle since he got Mangekyo Sharingan. The result is very gratifying. Even enemies like Kakuzu can be easily subdued or even killed. However, he is very clear that this technique has an upper limit. Just like the illusion of the Kurama clan, when the enemy's strength reaches a certain level, even if he kills the opponent in the illusion, this effect cannot be perfectly fed back to reality. The same is true for the ability of his left eye. When the illusion becomes the substance, it has the possibility of being cracked and countered. The defeat of Kakuzu has a lot to do with his lack of information and the interference of hidden mist jutsu. However, Akaban has not fully developed the most perfect way of turning the virtual into reality. The features of his eyes are still being experimented with since it's not been long for him to awaken his Mangekyo. For the time being, the effect of the hidden mist technique is quite good. Only this time, in order not to expose his illusion and eyes, he first used his mental power and chakra to create the illusion that besieged Kakuzu in the illusion space and then used his chakra to transform it into a substance that consumes his chakra a little. Akaban rubbed his eyes and rested for a long time before the soreness of his eyes finally disappeared. He can be sure that his Sharingan does have lower side effects than ordinary Mangekyo Sharingan, which is highly likely to be related to him having both Uchiha bloodline and Uzumaki physique. Fortunately, cooperation was reached. The agreement between the two people is that Kakuzu is another chief in charge on Land of Rivers, and Nakigawa is their immediate boss. Kakuzu's ability to make money is trustworthy, and the underground forces in the Land of River are handed over to him, and he will be in charge of Kakuzu himself, which will save a lot of effort. Of course, the work of Kakuzu is not directly managed here, but to pool another group of people, pretending to be two groups vying with each other, and slowly annexing the market. Taking advantage of the time when he was out for dinner, Akaban went downstairs to inform Nakigawa, lest these people didn't know the situation, and be killed directly by Kakuzu. With all this done, Akaban will have time to really visit the current Keochuan town. There is a big change here, and the most important thing is the wandering samurai who come here especially for his comic and for other national reasons. In other places, Akaban wearing a sword on his waist is very eye-catching, but here, he can see several people in a few steps, and some even have 3 swords in their waist, just like Zoro in the comics. On the edge of the river, even a small pier was built on which the newly constructed pirate boats were built. In every sense, One Piece is influencing the development of this small town. However, after looking around for a while, Akaban is most concerned about another thing. Keochuan town already has a copycat around. This is a blacksmith's shop. In the past, the business was relatively ordinary, but since he began to imitate the swords that Zoro and Hawkeye used, his business has become more popular than before. Akaban was secretly concerned, but he didn't intend to block or pursue copyright. Anyway, after he controls the underground forces in Keochuan town, with the protection fees, it can still be recovered. These problems are not big. But this is enough to show that One Piece has a great influence on this place. Akaban turns around and uses his superb sense to detect the surrounding situation. The number of traitors is not right. It is 2 or 3 times more than before. Even if there are some ninjas from Sand Village, the number is far more than the information given to me by the third Hokage. But the Konoha's ninja here must have grasped this information, but they just failed to return to Konoha from the front line in time. Akaban returned to the tavern and found a place to sit down after entering the door. A lot of gossip can be found in the tavern, especially in such a place where rebels gather. Some news may even be impossible to find through regular channels. He was drinking, and there were many people around him bragging, but it was a pity that there was no valuable information. It was all trivial gossip, such as the murder of the rebellious tycoon Chuchu, and another update of the love in the desert from Jiraiya's book. Of course, occasionally there are some things worth paying attention to, as some people talk about the comic Naruto. Although the comic of Naruto is only sold in the country of fire, but now the people in the land of river are diverse, and many wandering warriors have been to the country of fire and have a little understanding there. Afterwards, a ninja whispered, "I heard that this time, Hidden Sand Village dispatched their Jinchuriki to raise the land of rivers to the ground. No way, if this kind of power is deployed, isn't it dangerous for us to continue to stay in the land of rivers?" Others were surprised. However, some people have spoken, saying that they have also heard such rumors. Akaban frowned slightly, then he got up and turned to carry the wine, and asked, "You just said that Hidden Sand Village is going to dispatch their Jinchuriki. Where did the news come from? Many people are spreading it, and I don't know where it came from." The other party answered naturally, like he was entrusted to spread the news. Akaban lifted the glass and drank it all, then got up and went to the back of the tavern to find Nakigawa to confirm the news. Nakigawa's answer is no different from these people. Not only that, but he also said another thing to Akaban. "Before, there were some acquaintances who wanted to hire us using money to spread the news, but at that time we had already followed you and made a lot of money, so we refused. Employment. Go and ask, I need to hire people over there." "Huh? Yes, I will ask now." Nakigawa was a little surprised, and he was so puzzled. Everyone now only needs to sell alcohol and open a store to make money, so why bother to do that kind of life and death business? But the one who asked is the boss, so he can only do his best to accomplish it. After consulting his subordinates, Akaban returned to the room, thinking about what happened just now. Konoha knew that Hidden Sand Village wanted to use Jinchuriki because the Anbu ninja, who was lurking inside Land of Wind, reported that the Jinchuriki who had been detained had been released. But most of the people in the Land of River are wandering samurai and wandering ninjas. So from which channel did they hear about this news? Akaban feels that something was wrong. Whoever uses the Jinchuriki power secretly but still spreads news everywhere, which only shows that the goal of the Sand Village is most likely not the land of the river. Of course, these are just guesses, and the specific situation can only be judged based on Nakigawa's reply. There is too little information. It wasn't until the evening, Nakigawa finally came back. "My lord, my friend is now a little leader here, and he is responsible for recruiting people from Kelchuan town. He said let us wait for the news, and as long as the time is up, we will get a lot of money." Akaban had a strange expression. "My lord, shall we participate?" Nakigawa was a little bit tempted as he wanted to go to make money. This kind of good thing cannot be missed. Akaban glanced at him, said with a sneer, "Go, just cooperate with Kakuzu, let him help find a new subordinate." Do you think there is fraud?" Nakigawa was immediately convinced. Looking at this guy, Araki is 10 times braver than him, but this guy hasn't been overwhelmed yet. Akaban even plans to wait for the young man to grow up and change this guy to become the head. Since from his reaction alone, he knows this guy won't last lost. Akaban sighed inwardly and said, "There is no free lunch in the world. It's obviously a lie." If they followed what the little leader said, he was afraid that they would go to the battlefield and become a meat shield in the fight. As for money, if people are gone, do they still need to pay them? Akaban became more sure of the guess in his mind that the goal of the sand village was not the country of the river but another place, but there must be some actions on the country of the river. He walked upstairs. After pondering for a while, he split out a shadow clone and went to the caravan, where the information should be handed over to the people over there to send to the Hokage. __. Sand Village. Zack was wearing a slightly spacious Kazekage robe and stood respectfully in front of the hospital bed. "Teacher, I still don't understand why we don't fight the fertile land of rivers, but instead provoke the land of birds, which is very close to Hidden Rain Village and Hidden Stone Village. I am afraid that Hanzo and Stone Ninja will be provoked at the same time." Zack was a little worried and puzzled. Shaman's situation was miserable. Danza cut off his hand and abolished his leg. In the end, if it weren't for a 2-inch gap, he might be killed on the spot. How can he survive? Of course. He is not alive either, because half of his body has been transformed into puppets, plus the loss of a hand. He no longer has the possibility of using hand seals, and he can only use puppet master jutsu and low difficulty taijutsu with his current condition. For Shaman who is good at ninjutsu and taijutsu, his combat power has been reduced in half. However, these injuries did not affect his thinking. There was a pile of comic books on the table next to them. These comics were all Naruto that was only sold in Fire Country. Shaman spoke with difficulty. You worried about Hanzo and Stone Ninja but not Sarutobi Hiruzen and Konoha. Konoha should not be able to cope with the battlefield of the Uzumaki Kingdom. If we miss this opportunity, I don't know when we will be able to get the land of the river. Zack said unwillingly. Zack, there are no such words as should, if, and possible in war. Hidden Sand Village can't make mistakes. Why do you think other ninja villages have to destroy Land of Whirlpools? You can also think about this. Konoha is much better than us when using seals and Jinchuriki. As Shaman said that, he bitterly picked up a book of comics and pointed at the symbol on Naruto Uzumaki's belly. These jutsu formulas may be Kurama Akaban's nonsense, but it is enough to show that he understands sealing jutsu. Even if he is from a genjutsu specialist clan, he has mastered sealing jutsu. And these are not the key points. The key is the evil sealing method, 5 elements seal, etc. mentioned above. They don't know how to do it, let alone dead demon consuming seal, 4 tetragram seal, 8 sign seal. They sound like a jutsu from heavenly book, and they don't know what kind of sealing jutsu it is. Like the dead demon consuming seal, is that a technique that humans can master? The Uzumaki clan is the devil, seriously affecting the balance of the ninja world, and deserves to be annihilated by everyone. He was indignant. The more ignorant a person is, the more fearless he is. But the more you know, the more fearful and timid you are. And Shaman was in this situation, especially after reading the comic. It was almost as if he had a Konoha phobia. But his concerns are not without reason. If they really attack the land of rivers, he was afraid of Shukaku being sealed by the Konoha after it was released. If the Hidden Sand Village plan fails, they still have to make money and even various natural resources to give to Konoha just to redeem their tailed beast if that happens. The gain is not worth the loss. Zack stared at that set of comics for a long time, and whispered, "Teacher, this is just a comic." "No, it is not just a comic. It is another aspect of Konoha. There are many names in it that we have never heard of." "Are you sure Konoha does not have that ninjutsu?" Shaman smiled bitterly. After hearing this, Zack was stunned, and then he wanted to refute, but thought of what the teacher had just said, "Don't say should, maybe and if," and immediately stopped what he wanted to say. At least everyone knows the bottom line of the Land of Stone, but for Konoha, 8 inner gates, impure world reincarnation, heaven knows, is there such a heaven-defying ninjutsu in the world? If Konoha faces a desperate situation and uses these forbidden jutsu, it is Hidden Sand Village that will suffer. Zack wants to say they don't exist, but the Chidori jutsu that Sakumo from the Hatake clan used from last time is valid proof. And Hidden Sand cannot afford to pay the wrong price. Konoha didn't know anything about the Sand Village situation. But if they know that Shaman is alive, they can guess the Hidden Sand Village's goal pretty close based on this information. After all, Konoha and Shaman have hand-to-hand combat many times and know each other. But young people like Zack are different. And Zack is like a newborn calf who does not fear tigers. The biggest strong points of newcomers are fearlessness, and its shortcoming is also being fearless. But Akaban is different. He is very afraid of death, and he must first collect information clearly before making the next strategy. So when he didn't understand the result and wanted to know the situation, Akaban gave this information to Kakuzu, who was active in Keochuan town. How to contact and how to find that person was all clear. Kakuto was very happy with this information and even promised to give Akaban a part of the reward. This type of MLM organization may be a quagmire and trap for others, but for Kakuzu, it is simply a paradise that can no longer be wonderful. He is currently short of money and manpower. And it's perfect win-win cooperation. Of course, Akaban doesn't need money, what he wants is information from the organization, and that information is more useful than money. Like today's information, he has already told Konoha about several ninjas hidden in the caravan. According to the feedback from the clone, there are 3 ninjas from Aburam clan members, 3 Inuzuka clan members, and 2 Uchiha clan members on standby on the Land of River. If there is no accident, there should be some action there. Akaban didn't think much about Land of Rivers before. It's too chaotic here. The whole country is full of rebels and wandering ninjas, and now there are more wandering warriors. It can be said that the national rules are completely useless here, but the underground rules are more authoritative. However, when he set foot on this land again and saw the many changes that had taken place in Keochuan town due to One Piece, he suddenly had a crazy idea in his heart. Land of Rivers has developed this into a large-scale manga country, and cooperation with Kakuzu, development of influence, etc. are all based on this idea. And his crazy idea was taking the Land of River as its own, developing it into a large-scale comic country, with cooperation with Kakuzu. Anyway, the royal family of the Land of River is not much different from whether it is. Kakuzu moved very quickly. At noon on the second day, his shadow clone came up quietly. The person in charge of the operation is a special Jounin from Sand Village, but he can only say that this ninja is quite unlucky when encountering Kakuzu. Because, not only their money will be gone, but also its people. Now the roster of mercenaries he recruited falls into the hands of Kakuzu, and then looking for people from the roster are much easier than searching all over the street. The news he brings is very important. Sure enough, the Sand Ninja was behind the recruitment of these mercenaries, so the target of Hidden Sand Village is not Land of Rivers, but somewhere else. And their target will most likely be the area on the north of the Land of Wind and the Land of Birds. Because it is very remote there are hills and ravines everywhere, and there are no ninjas in the country. Simply speaking, this country is a territory that can be defeated by any country with ninjas. It is in the middle of Hidden Rain Village, Land of Wind and Land of Earth. It is in a delicate balance. In addition, the country is very poor. There are many mountainous regions and there are no special mineral deposits. That's why Hidden Rain Village and Land of Earth are not very interested in it. It is different for the Land of Wind. The Land of Wind is too barren, and even this kind of chicken ribs can bite deliciously. The main reason why the other two countries want to take care of this side is mainly because they are unwilling to let the Land of Wind succeed. For the north, there is another advantage. In the Land of Whirlpool's war, the Hidden Rain Village and Hidden Stone Village also participated. But according to normal thinking, dealing with one enemy is better than dealing with two. It can only be said that Hidden Sand Village judges that Konoha, which has only half the battle strength, is stronger than Stone Ninja and Hidden Rain Village combined. This is very puzzling. Akaban pondered for a long time, but he didn't understand why the Sand Village gave up the strategy here. But this is great news. Since Sand Village will not attack the country of River on a large scale, there is no need for Akaban to stay here. The time for him to go home is approaching. Of course. To end the business trip early, he must first persuade the boss above. Therefore, Akaban specially wrote a report, detailing the materials and information he found and asked the hidden colleagues of the caravan to pass it on. If he can go back soon, it will definitely be more comfortable at home. Akaban was lying on the bed, doing nothing. After thinking about it, he summoned a shadow clone and let him go out quietly to find a place to draw a comic update. One Piece has gradually expanded its influence in the Land of River, and he has to work hard to update it. More than One Piece. It should be time for Shinyui's comic to be published, but he didn't know if he finished his work yet. Akaban lay on the bed. Although his body does not move, the update is still being created fast. Ninjutsu is really convenient. On the third day, the reply from the third Hokage finally came, and the third Hokage was not interested in what Akaban would do to develop a force in the Land of River, he only cared about the results. After reading the reply, Akaban felt a little uncomfortable. He worked so hard to get the information, and he wrote a battle report to express his reasonable guesses. He wanted to end the business trip and go back to Konoha to relax, but the third Hokage only praised him and wanted him to go back to preside over the work of the preparation department. Isn't someone taking over temporarily? He regrets it a bit. Maybe he should report a few days later so that he can play for a few more days in the Land of River. Although there is nothing fun here, the houses all over the town are being renovated and gradually transformed into some of the more common house types in One Piece. Seeing that the whole town has become like this because of his own comic, he still has a sense of accomplishment in his heart. But it just doesn't seem very good to stay any longer. Someone always needs to do the work. If he doesn't go back now, the preparation department will be in a mess, and it is more troublesome to clean up later. So without any other choice, Akaban was finally going back. Akaban packs up his things, but before leaving, there are still some things that need to be explained. Nakigawa, you have performed very well during this period of time. Keep it up. It's better to get more sights. Don't be limited to Keochuan town. I trained you for so long to not let you eat dry food. In addition, Nakagawa's personality is not strong. In a sense he is not suitable for being a leader-level figure, but he is obedient. As long as there is an order, he will complete it meticulously. Just like this command, Nakagawa didn't understand it in his heart, because his ambition and vision were very small, and Kochuan town was already very big for him. But when he gets the order, he will immediately start thinking about what to do. Not long after, Nakagawa said, "My lord, there is a shipyard in Koran town next to it. Are we going there next?" Shipyard. Akaban glanced at him and nodded slightly. To be rich, build roads first. When they can control Koran town, they can control the ships. When the time comes to establish a fleet, it will be much more convenient whether it is closing the site or for transportation, and it is best to directly control the shipyard. In this way, the shipbuilding business will be its own in the future. Well, that guy must understand this, since that guy is very sensitive to making money. Akaban pondered for a moment, and felt that this man Nakagawa was not useless, but simply not suitable for being a leader. You should do that. If there are not enough staff, you contact me in the old way. Yes. Of course, he doesn't have any means of communication, but Orochimaru does. Nakagawa and Orochimaru have always been in contact through snakes. As long as Orochimaru gets the news, Akaban will know. After explaining these, Akaban set off for Konoha. It happened that he had a manuscript of 10 chapters for One Piece and a manuscript of 5 chapters for Naruto, all of which were produced by his shadow clone who worked hard these days and could be sent directly to Izumi Yamano for printing. And since he hadn't updated his comics for 7 or 8 days, his points didn't increase. Times. From the land of river to the land of fire, Akaban returned very quickly, and it was already evening when he returned to Konoha. Along the way, he sends his shadow clone to find Yamano Izumi and asks him to help publish the comics in hand. Izumi Yamano hadn't published comics for some days. And due to the war that started recently, all kinds of ninja had to work overtime, which was too busy. Therefore, although the comic on Akaban was submitted, the update speed was definitely not as fast as before. Back in Konoha, Akaban didn't go home but first looked for Orochimaru. Although the establishment of the base is a common idea between Orochimaru and him, the implementation is done by Orochimaru alone. And since he used Orochimaru identity, they still have to communicate to avoid mistakes in the wrong information. Especially Kakuzu. This guy is not easy to provoke, since right now Orochimaru is not an opponent at all. If something goes wrong, it will be miserable. When he arrived in Anbu, perhaps being not be here for a long time. Rarely, there was an Anbu to probe to check the situation. After seeing Akaban, he did not stop him, but said, "Are you here to look for Orochimaru? It just so happens that there are 2 letters that you need to read in person." From the teacher. Akaban couldn't help but be startled slightly. Sending back 2 letters from the front line was not a small price. Danza sent this letter through all the hardships, but he didn't ask the 3rd Hokage to inform him, which seemed very strange. He followed the Anbu in and found the 2 letters. From the outside symbol decoration, it should be in the style of Hidden Whirlpool's village. Akaban turned the envelope over and it said, "To my daughter" on the cover. It's a letter from Uzumaki Shuhei to Uzumaki Tomiko, his daughter. While the other one is for him. Akaban fell silent seeing this. And since it was sent back from the front line and suffered untold hardships. Obviously, it was not as simple as reporting his safety. Others can escape into the land of fire, but as the leader of the country, it's impossible for him to leave and escape. This is an absolute letter. A simple piece of paper that was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. He sighed softly, put down the letter for little Tomiko, then picked up the one for himself. He opened the envelope and took out the paper inside. Akaban, about Tomiko's affairs, Danza already told me. I am very glad that you can give Tomiko the opportunity to choose for herself, and I am very happy that my daughter can live safely in Konoha. Even if she becomes a Jinchuriki, I have nothing to say, because this is the destiny of our clan. From now on, please take good care of her. If you can, I hope she can change her surname to Kurama, and for the Uzumaki, it will be extinct from now on. From Uzumaki Shuhei. Akaban sighed heavily. The war seems to be over, but the cost is estimated to be very tragic, and the Uzumaki family is obviously also very close, knowing that it is impossible to bear the surname of Uzumaki from now on. Fortunately, everything is over and their family has not completely perished. This is better than anything else. He thought for a moment and did not open the letter for Tomiko, but put it away to bring it to her. Afterwards, he went over and chatted with Orochimaru. In fact, it is basically nothing. Orochimaru is now a purely technical house, completely indulged in ninjutsu research. He has already fixed the previous sound detector, and it has played a significant role in the front line. Now his subject is very delicate as it's about the soul. For the time being, he doesn't know for what purpose he studied this subject, but soul is very profound. For the current Orochimaru, it is obviously too obscure, and it is estimated that he will give up on it temporarily for a while. By the way, are you really planning to dominate the situation in Keochuan town? In the end, Akaban couldn't help mentioning Keochuan town. Speaking of Keochuan town, Orochimaru looked proud. That is my best work. In the future, the country of River will be completely transformed into the rules and systems of One Piece. Haha, I'm looking forward to that. Akaban gave a thumbs up. He only wanted to control the underground forces in the land of River, but the goal of Orochimaru was even greater, as he directly wanted to move all the One Piece sets to the land of River. But thinking about it, it doesn't seem impossible. The land of River does not have its own Shinobi village, anyway, it can't be worse than it is now. Even if the king has any opinions, the royal family has no choice but to pinch their nose and agree to it, as it will make their country more prosperous than ever. After his long absence, Orochimaru is rarely interested in chatting, but right now, even his ninjutsu research is temporarily put on hold as he continues talking. Akaban actually wanted to leave earlier, but couldn't hold back the opponent pulling him, so he could only sit down and listen patiently. Akaban, I completed the sound detection research some time ago. I took some free time to read your comic update. Although the settings in it are very strange, I still have some questions after reading it. Orochimaru dragged his own research records. Humans and beasts have souls, but what is the essence of souls, and does it have a gender? Good question, I also want to know. This question is too philosophical, and he can raise a lot of similar questions. But Akaban didn't think too much about it and was thinking of how to answer Orochimaru's question. At the beginning of a person's birth, the soul is like a blank sheet of paper. It takes time to teach and learn to understand the difference between men and women. Therefore, I think the soul is genderless, and what determines the gender is the mind and memory of the person. But Orochimaru did not wait for Akaban's reply and answered the question by himself. Then he stood up and walked to the experimental platform. There are 2 boxes on it, with a mouse and a cat. If I exchange the souls of cats and mice, and exchange their memories, they will soon adapt to their new identities, and so will people. He babbled. Akaban closed his mouth and listened intently. What Orochimaru said makes sense. Orochimaru doesn't need others to answer him, he only needs an audience. Audiences who don't look at these questions and research with strange eyes. After talking, Orochimaru closed the box, then sat down and said, in addition, I am still thinking, if someone forges the memory of characters like Iruka and Mitsuki, will they think they are Iruka and Mitsuki, and live like this? Good question, I also want to know that. Akaban felt that apart from this sentence, he couldn't answer anything else. This was the difference between a student and a teacher. If the teacher couldn't answer it, he could still speak eloquently and express his unfamiliarity in a polite and decent manner. But being a student is different. Orochimaru finished his conjecture about the soul in one breath and finally sighed helplessly. The soul realm is vast, and even the second Hokage who is best at research does not have a clear understanding and explanation of this, let alone Akaban. Sitting down again, Orochimaru turned the page of another booklet that he got from below. What kind of soul research is this? Akaban couldn't help getting nervous. At any rate, he was also a genius in the eyes of others. It would be too embarrassing if he was unable to answer any of his questions. Fortunately, Orochimaru did not embarrass him this time. This booklet is a design drawing, which demonstrates combined ninjutsu in detail. Like using the earth-style barrier technique as the barrel, wind-style as the power, and using fire oil and fire-style as the shells to carry out long-range strikes. In short, this is a canon. Yes, I created this jutsu by referring to your manga idea, but for the time being, I didn't know who is suitable to use this ninjutsu. Orochimaru does not know fire style himself. He has now developed two types of chakra nature transformation, one is wind and the other is soil. Without fire style, it can only be combined and released. This is just a rudimentary idea. The ultimate goal is to create a ninja tool, not a combination ninjutsu. Orochimaru introduced his technique. Not bad. In his lifetime, maybe Akaban can see a real sea ship battle. Akaban is more and more confident in Orochimaru's vision of the One Piece country, and perhaps in the future Land of Rivers can really be transformed into One Piece. But when the time comes, the name of the Land of River will be somewhat subtle. The two chatted for a while, and then Akaban left the laboratory with a letter. After 4 or 5 days of being away, it is time to go back and report his safety. It was already night. Konoha's night is relatively lively, and there are still some people walking on the street. When he returned to his clan, his parents hadn't slept yet. Seeing Akaban's safety, Kurama Kiko and Izumu were also relieved. Akaban said briefly what he could and then talked about Uzumaki to Miko. The Land of Whirlpools is probably gone. From what Uzumaki Shuhai's letter said, Akaban can guess what happened, so it's not weird for little Tomiko not to know it, as she probably already knew this will happen in her heart. Although she is young, she is actually very clever. Upon hearing it, Akaban's mother, Kurama Kiko, agreed with the adoption as a daughter and changing her surname. As for Kurama Izumu, he listened to Kiko. Since his family agreed, it is impossible for the Kurama clan to object, with the future leader and an elder requesting it. Akaban was away for a few days, so he didn't know the situation. But now he is in the clan. His treatment is basically the same as that of the next patriarch. When everyone mentions Akaban, everyone praises him and is respectful, so his reputation is terribly good. Of course. His laziness is also famous. For example, now, once he gets home, he takes a shower, and then he doesn't care about everything and goes to bed first. Yamano Izumi knows it well. That's why when he sent over 100 copies in the morning he didn't bother finding Akaban. However, due to the shortage of personnel, the number of people in the convoy was much smaller this time, and he moved back quickly with the help of surrounding villagers. Although there are comics, Kurama Yunlane knows better that Akaban has returned to the clan, but after working together for a long time with Akaban, he has a good understanding of Akaban's nature. Like right now. After returning from a trip, Akaban usually has to sleep at least half a day. When he sleeps, whoever bothers him will have their faces sprayed, unless it is a big shot such as the third Hokage, Uzumaki Maito and the like looking for him, otherwise, it will be postponed until he wakes up naturally. And today, someone was looking for him. But it was only Uchiha's little kid who came, so Kurama Yunlane didn't go to Akaban, and waited until he woke up by himself, and when Akaban came to the comic shop, that's only when he was going to tell him that someone was looking for him. Infinity, infinity, infinity. When Akaban woke up, he first went to the comic shop and planned to leave a shadow clone to continue creating updates, but what was awaiting him was the impatient Uchiha Ryo, who looked at Akaban with red eyes. It was Uchiha Ryo who was looking for him, but that guy was just a messenger, and it was Uchiha Yuan who was really looking for Akaban. After saying the message, Uchiha Ryo finally leaves without making a scene in the shop. It seems the child has grown up. Akaban didn't think too much and left behind a shadow clone, and then slowly went to the guard department. But something went wrong here. After not coming here for a while, he thought the guard department was still in the same place, but when he arrived at Uchiha, he knew that the guard department had all moved to remote outskirts of the village while he was out. Judging from the geographical location along the way, it should be the place where Uchiha was expelled from the manga. After asking an Uchiha guard, he goes in through the gate and faces the lake where Sasuke Uchiha first used his fireball jutsu, in the future. There was an abandoned training field on the periphery of the lake, but it has been rebuilt and expanded to become a large training field. When Akaban walked in, many ninjas were still training inside. After approaching the door, he saw Uchiha Yuan standing in the middle of the training ground, like a head teacher, scanning his students back and forth, paying attention to the training situation of the audience. It seems that he has not used his main Gekyo Sharingan many times as his eyesight is still very good. Akaban murmured secretly from the bottom of his heart and walked in to find that Uchiha Yuan's eyes were actually fixed on a child. This child is about 4 or 5 years old, and his talent seems to be good. He has the strength to accurately throw kunai into the center of the target 10 meters away. It can be seen that he has inherited the blood of Uchiha perfectly. Your child? Akaban asked in a low voice. Yes, his name is Fugaku. Uchiha Yuan said proudly. Looking at his current performance, he knows that Fugaku will definitely be a genius in the future. I see. Akaban glanced at the child. In appearance, they are a bit similar to Itakai and Sasuke, but they have very limited resemblance. It seems that Itakai and Sasuke have more inherited the appearances of their mother, Uchiha Mikoto. Seeing Akaban's arrival, Uchiha Yuan looked at Fugaku a few more times, then turned and walked in the other direction with Akaban. He pointed to the training ground and said, I think the third Hokage-sama appointed you as a training instructor. It must be his intention. Therefore, this time I invite you to ask questions about training. Training. Actually, there is nothing much for me to say. My training mainly relies on my bloodline limit illusion. I will use the real five senses to simulate the real scene of the battlefield to the greatest extent to achieve the purpose of preparatory training. Akaban explained. Well, I have guessed this, but recently Shinyai seems to have developed a jutsu for freely manipulating illusions. Although there are no real five senses on it, it should have a partial effect, right? Akaban was startled. Has his future server succeeded? But after thinking about it, Shinyai is now in the guard department, and it doesn't seem to have much to do with him. After thinking about it, his joy turned into sorrow. He sighed secretly, and then nodded heavily. The effect is there, but there may be differences in some places. Such as... Uchiha Yuan stopped nervously. Although the Uchiha clan can also use illusion, Akaban is obviously the real expert in this regard. After all, the illusion is only an illusion. Many strategies can be used, like sacrificing others and then accomplishing their task or strategic goal. Without the five senses that can make it more realistic, the ninja will become half-baked, etc. Akaban explained in detail. These questions have actually been discussed with Danza in the past, and now he just repeats them. Uchiha Yuan listened carefully to all the details, and he nodded every time Akaban said something that made sense. In the end, he sighed and said, listening to your analysis, it is true. After all, the illusion is only an illusion, and no matter how real it is not comparable to the real battlefield. Akaban nodded, and after thinking about it, he said, but I have a plan here. The guard has a lot of new recruits, and our preparation department is all new recruits. We will wait for the preparation department to start training for a while. At that time, we can have joint fantasy training. Joint fantasy training. This is a good way. Uchiha Yuan immediately agreed to the plan, and the two walked a few more steps. He looked around and saw that there was no one around. Then he took out a booklet from his arms and handed it to Akaban. Akaban glanced at it, and his eyes widened. Mangekyo. He raised his head in disbelief and glanced at Uchiha Yuan. Don't worry, it's just some unclassified stuff. Uchiha Yuan sighed lightly. Akaban opened it. As he said, it was really not too secret. It said that Uchiha Yuan had used a different method before when his eye was still an ordinary Sharingan, like the practice of pupil surgery. The vision loss is actually not much, but for the elite Chunin, even a small change can feel the difference. He then said, the more hatred and pain the user feels, the more powerful their Mangekyo Sharingan is. I believe you should have guessed this, otherwise, it would not be described as such in your comic. I guess that Uchiha's eyes should be related to mental power variation. The greater the negative emotions, the more active this mental energy will be, and in the end, it will form a special chakra to normal chakras. Akaban said half-truth and half-lie, he didn't say this too completely. Regarding these, there are more or less sporadic records within Uchiha, so Uchiha Yuan nodded slightly in agreement, but did not point out what was wrong. He was just a little emotional. If Akaban knows this, is it his own guess, or is there information on Uchiha in the second Hokage and Anbu? Before the transition, Uchiha Yuan might have had a grudge and wanted to figure it out, but now he doesn't care. It's not a big secret anyway. The important thing is that the people of the tribe are alive and that everyone can live in peace and stability. These are better than anything else. At the same time, he is confident that, with his own management methods, The Uchiha clan will not activate their Sharingan with the use of cannibalism. Once such a clansman appears, he will without the slightest hesitation kill him. But, is it true that using Mangekyou will reduce vision? Akaban pretended to be unclear about it, and pointed to a certain item in the booklet and asked. Uchiha Yuan was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "Yes, the price of using it is darkness." "So that's the case, but I remember that Uchiha Madara has used his Mangekyou Sharingan for a long time, and I haven't heard of any side effects. Is it solved by some method?" Akaban guessed casually. "I do not know." Uchiha Yuan's expression remained unchanged. Only he himself knows if what he said is true. After all, some parts of Uchiha's family history must have been passed down. From the clues, he should be able to guess part of the truth. Akaban didn't reveal it, anyway, he just asked casually, and he didn't continue asking. The two of them walked for a while. Akaban weighed the booklet in hand and prepared to return it to Uchiha Yuan, but the other party did not pick it up, but smiled lightly. "Recently, the training ground has been a bit busy lately, so you can pass it to Lord Hokage for me." I understand." Akaban pondered for a moment and put away the booklet. After all, it is a Mangekyou Sharingan, a legendary power. It is better than the village being suspicious all day long about them, and finally embarking on their old path. So having the village understand these powers to the greatest extent is not a loss to the Uchiha clan. Akaban put away the booklet. They were now at the edge of the training ground, so they turned back from here and walked along with another place. The training ground is huge. Except that it is a little far away from the village, there is nothing wrong with it. It is definitely a very good place to be used as the headquarters of the guards department and for training, but it is very uncomfortable if you live here. If you are too far away, you will become more and more alienated from the people around you. Like what happened to the Uchiha clan in the comics. But it's different now. Although Uchiha's reputation is still not very good, many villagers will greet enthusiastically and actively. This is the result of their sacrifice that made them be part of the village. Separating the guard from the Uchiha clan, the villager does not have to be afraid of it being labeled as Uchiha. Uchiha Yuan also bleeds his heart for his family. Not anyone can do it. Infinity, infinity, infinity. The two didn't proceed to talk as they kept walking. Uchiha Yuan knows exactly how to do training. After all, he has managed Uchiha's guard for some years. Although he has no real power before, it doesn't mean he knows nothing about it. As for looking for Akaban, he just has some questions about his fantasy training, that's all. Furthermore, although Shinyai can create and freely control illusions, he does not have the ability of the Kurama 5 senses, and the difference between the two illusions needs to be further investigated. Akaban followed Uchiha Yuan for a section of the road. Uchiha Yuan walked for a while, and suddenly stopped. He looked around, and then asked in a low voice, "Akaban, when will your Kafirime be updated again?" "Huh?" Akaban was stunned for a moment, then looked at the patriarch of the clan. He was shocked for a few seconds, then touched his chin. "Why did I change my pen name so that these old dogs couldn't recognize that it's me, but how can I still be recognized by them one after another? I just blame myself for being so good." Akaban sighed secretly, considered it, waved weakly and said, "I am looking for inspiration. You can also see, I'm just a child, and I'm not that shameless, and I've been very busy recently. For a creator, lack of inspiration is really fatal." Uchiha Yuan sighed. Of course. The coercive words "just a child" and "I'm not shameless" were automatically filtered out in his ears. What kind of person draws more advanced works than Jiraiya? Compared to Jiraiya, he is just not so obvious. As for Jiraiya, that guy may be used to it and enjoy the process of being discovered. Uchiha Yuan maliciously speculated. After being urged, Akaban found an excuse and quickly fled from here. It's too scary. How can you shamelessly urge the author to draw? Leaving the training ground, Akaban glanced at the booklet in his arms. With such important information, he always feels unsafe. If he loses it, it will definitely be bad for him and the Uchiha. After thinking about it, I'd better go to the Hokage office first and report the details that day. After making a decision, Akaban went to Hokage's office. With his speed, it would not take much time to get from the guard headquarters to the Hokage office. The Land of Rivers incident has been reported before, so the specific situation is no longer repeated, only some details that are not mentioned should be elaborated. Hiruzen saw Akaban and pointed to the seat to let him sit down. In fact, there is not much to talk about here. Many things have been explained clearly in the report. At most, the things to talk about are work content. The attention of Hiruzen is still more on Uchiha's main Gekyo Sharingan. As the Hokage, he has some information left by the second Hokage about it. It records some of the mysteries of main Gekyo Sharingan, but it is more speculative. There is no comparison of such detailed information in the booklet. It can only be obtained from the Uchiha itself. After reading it carefully, he put down the booklet and fell into contemplation. Despite these various shortcomings, it is an indisputable fact that the main Gekyo Sharingan has the ability to control the tail beast. But now Uzumaki Mito is still alive. With her ability, no one in the whole ninja world can forcibly take the 9 tails from her, provided that her body and her chakra have not ushered in a period of a complete decline. In the short term, there is no need to worry about these issues. After all, Uchiha Yuan's ability and vision are appreciated by the third Hokage. He believes that Yuan will not do such stupid things. What he needs to be worried about is the future. If an Uchiha who has awakened their main Gekyo Sharingan appears in the future, what will be the attitude of those people? Power can cause people to swell and lose their minds, especially with Uchiha's eyes, which are inherently unknown powers. If their will is not firm, they will live in hatred like Sasuke, and then gradually change their original minds. Hiruzen pondered for a long time and said, "You should go to Mito-sama again, right? Then you can bring this book and show it to Mito-sama." "Ah, all right." Akaban was taken aback for a moment and immediately understood. And Akaban also now understands why Danza sent the letter to him instead of the third Hokage. Danza wanted to give the letter to the third Hokage to send to little Tomiko, but when he thought about it, he was a little bit ashamed. Although Mito had the surname of Senju, she was essentially a member of the Uzumaki. Land of Whirlpools fell, so he really didn't know what attitude he would face. And the third Hokage also has the same thought as Danza, that's why he didn't have the nerve to face Uzumaki Mito right now. Hiruzen sighed heavily and exhaustedly, then couldn't help but smile and said, "But this time Hanzo took the advantage of taking a dip in the muddy water, and now he has to bear the due price." He got the message from Akaban the other day, and the first reaction of the third Hokage was the same as Akaban. If Hidden Sand Village does not fight Land of Rivers, they will definitely fight the Land of Birds. They will not miss this excellent opportunity. Even if they asked for the Land of Rain help, their ability is also limited, even if the order is received and their assassination team is dispatched, but the remaining power is incomparable to Hidden Sand Village. Since the Sand Village made such a decision, I have a feeling that the second Kazekage is probably not dead. Akaban said casually. Judging from the plot of the comics, the third Kazekage personality tends to be tough, and during the Chunin exams in Hidden Sand Village, he feels that Zack is indeed not as calm and sophisticated as Shaman. The current decision is obviously not in his hands. Yes, they probably use the living puppet master jutsu. It is a taboo level jutsu like impure world reincarnation. I don't know how far he has transformed himself. Danza once described the battle to Hiruzen. And based on that, he can guess what Shaman's current condition is right now. Unless his body is transformed, it is impossible for him to be a ninja at all. However, no matter how much it is remodeled, it is ultimately a puppet, unable to compare with the original body. So Shaman's strength is destined to be impossible to be the same as before. So right now, he is probably not on an elite Jonin level anymore and is no longer worthy of fear. The point is this man's brain. Although he looks burly and rugged, in fact, his strongest weapon is his brain. And it was he who developed and extended half of the puppet skills in Sand Village. This aspect has little to do with Akaban, and Hiruzen just mentioned it casually. After a few more conversations, he left the office and went to the land of the Thousand Hands clan. At the door, Akaban was very worried. Although it is clear in his heart that little Tomiko might have guessed the truth of the matter a long time ago, it is still difficult to express her feelings when she personally saw it herself. It's kind of like sending a death notice to her. So he kept walking back and forth at the gate, perturbed. After a long time, on the second floor of the yard, the little girl poked her head and looked over his position. He almost forgot, she still has superb perception abilities. Akaban smiled bitterly and stepped into the yard. Uzumaki Maito lay on the rocking chair, rarely nagging Akaban. With her wisdom, she found that Akaban was hesitating outside. For sure it's not good news and definitely a tragedy and already has a guess in her heart, and she didn't say anything because sooner or later the little girl needs to face the truth. Tomiko, your brother has a letter from your father to you. Akaban took it out and shook the envelope underneath. Little Tomiko was silent for a moment, then tried to squeeze a smile, and manipulated the cat puppet to jump down from the stairs. Then the cat puppet opened its mouth and grabbed the thin envelope. The next second, it jumped up and jumped back upstairs. Akaban moved over the stool and sat down on the side. He didn't know what to say. He didn't even dare to go upstairs or look up just now for fear of seeing the little girl's expression. For a long time, he just sighed in a low voice, this girl Chakra's control ability feels better than me. Akaban sighed, took out the pamphlet and handed it to Uzumaki Maito. She took it. There is still some distance from you, and Tsunade may be about the same. Uzumaki Maito opened the booklet, chatting with Akaban as she answered his doubt, but most of her attention was on this book. After turning over it, she put the book on the side, and the chair no longer swayed at this time. After a long time, she said, Yuan eye power is not strong enough. Eye power. Akaban pretended to be surprised. The power of Sharingan is related to eye power. The eye power of Madara is very powerful and can use a powerful ability called Susanoo. If the data in this book is true, then Uchiha Yuan does not have it. The ability to control 9 tails. Uzumaki Maito said briefly and then threw the book aside. The information she said was obviously not from her own understanding of the Sharingan. especially the last sentence. Akaban speculated for a moment, and his heart suddenly became clear to know this so clearly. It seemed that it was the statement of the 9 tails that was involved. Except for Uchiha, the poor fox who knows Mangekyo Sharingan ability best in the world is this poor fox. Since meeting Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara, the good days are over. Uzumaki Mito is a capable host, and she can open a window in the seal to let the fox see the outside world, and occasionally chat with him. Although the small days are boring, they are not miserable. But once the fox sees his next host a trifling brat, can you have the ability of Uzumaki Mito? When the time comes and Uzumaki Mito can't control him anymore, it's not the 9 tails that is forced to be beaten. When he thinks of this, Kurama is also very worried. If he doesn't resist, he can get some freedom, but it will lose its face as a tailed beast. A hard choice. Kurama lay in the small black room, staring at the youngster who was facing the small window. Although there are various things he disapproves of in the comic, this guy's comic is really good. If he can live in his body, it is not impossible to give in. After all, he can see comics every day, and it feels good. It's a pity that this guy is from the Kurama clan, and he is not good at sealing techniques. No, if I agree, isn't there no need for a sealing jutsu? Kurama froze for a moment. This is a good idea. When Uzumaki Mito gets old, I can mention it to her. When he thought of this, he got down to go to sleep. Akaban didn't know Kurama's thoughts, and now he chats with Uzumaki Mito. Uzumaki Mito sat up and glanced at him, and said gently, "Don't worry, Tomiko is not that fragile, and it's time to change the surname. Uzumaki's surname, let it stay in history. I still have questions. Why should she be sent to the Kurama clan instead of the Senju clan?" Akaban asked in a low voice. Since this problem was forced into his hands, he was puzzled. Although he could guess a little bit, he didn't understand the root cause. Why can the Senju clan be able to shelter 9 of them, but only let Tomiko come to the Kurama clan? Eggs can't be placed in a basket. Both Senju and Uzumaki have bloodlines that the ninja world is jealous of, and we have no way of knowing who controls and guides this matter. In case one day the Senju clan falls, the people who stay in the Kurama clan can at least pass on the blood. Uzumaki Mito's voice is very low, almost only Akaban can hear it. Akaban was startled for a moment. The black hand behind the scenes. After thinking about it carefully, he felt that it was really possible. The strategies of the countries towards Uzumaki were too consistent. Hearing from the third Hokage, Hanzo is mostly hired to send assassination troops. Then, behind this series of consistent actions, is anyone deliberately directing and meddling? In the comics, is Senju really all right? For example, Senju Nawaki stepping on a trap. If it's normal, there is no need to doubt it, but he not only stepped on the trap and died, but even his internal organs disappeared without a trace. From these perspectives, Uzumaki Mito's consideration is not unreasonable. However, there are only a handful of ninjas in the ninja world that can do this, either Madara, who was still alive at that time, or Black Zetsu. If it is to cut off the possibility of Asura's reincarnation, the probability of Black Zetsu is quite high. Of course, these are just speculations. Without real evidence, Akaban couldn't tell anyone his guess. But even if he said it, no one will believe him, because as of right now, Tsunad's little brother is not yet born. Also, Black Zetsu is too difficult. Even if he has the perception ability, he may not be able to feel his presence. Akaban will not show his knowledge before thoroughly understanding this guy. It didn't take long. Uzumaki Tomiko walked downstairs, her eyes were red and her expression was calm, but her hands were clenched tightly, obviously not calm. Grandma, I want to learn more about ninjutsu. Tomiko, hatred can't bring power. If you want to learn ninjutsu with a hatred and avenger mentality, I would rather you be just an ordinary person forever. Uzumaki Mito sat up and said. Her being harsh and solemn is rare as she was always calm. Tomiko was stunned for a while and then cried in pain. Akaban watched for a few seconds, and then quietly left the courtyard. In terms of comfort and guidance, Uzumaki Mito is stronger than him. Akaban has never experienced the pain of losing a loved one and has no right to comfort Tomiko in these aspects. He walked out of the yard, listening to the howling and crying from inside. He couldn't help sighing softly. Even if he traverses, there are many things that he is powerless to stop, like the destruction of the Uzumaki country, but fortunately, the Uzumaki family is not completely extinct, and some of them come to the country of fire. Akaban was confused and walked aimlessly on the street. After walking a few steps, he looked up and saw a figure holding a short blade in his hand and also around his waist, leaning against a tree, holding a comic in the other hand, and the silver hair on his head was very eye-catching. Sakumo. Akaban used his perception ability to make sure that Chakra was Sakumo before he completely believed it. Sakumo looked up and nodded gently. The teacher asked me to come back first. It was only a few months later, but Sakumo Hatake was completely different. Congratulations, it seems that you have made a lot of progress, and it won't take long for you to become a Jonin. Fighting on the battlefield is the fastest way to advance, not only because of the merits but also because the battlefield can hone the ninja's will and skills. Previously, Sakumo was a sword without a sharp edge, but now he is full of sharp edges, invisibly exuding a powerful aura. Based on this imposing manner alone, Akaban judged that his strength had entered a special Jounin level, and when he saw his double short blades, it seems that he completely comprehended the two-sword style on the battlefield. It should be special Jounin, it can be regarded as catching up with you. Sakumo smiled slightly, then pinned the comic around his waist and walked down the street with Akaban. But obviously, his state of mind is not at peace. After walking for a while, he slowly said, "Fortunately, you proposed to send the medical team to the front line, otherwise many seniors will face death or disability. The medical class is Tsunad's hard work, and it's not my idea to let them go to the front." Akaban explained quickly. Sakumo shook his head and said, "This is what the teacher asked me to pass on. He said that without the battlefield first aid and the mystical palm technique you proposed, the current death rate of the Anbu will be twice, including the teacher, if it weren't for timely first aid. It may leave a lot of hidden wounds." Akaban was silent and did not respond. Even the commander Danza complimented him himself, showing how tragic the battle was. The two of them walked for a while, and Sakumo mentioned many things about the war and explained the process in great detail, mentioning almost all the details. At first he thought he was looking for someone to talk to, but then he felt something was wrong. Unless necessary, Sakumo wouldn't talk about it, and remembered the details before and after so clearly, as if he was reading a draft to him. "What is this for?" Akaban thought for a few seconds, then interrupted, "Wait, Sakumo, we have been teammates for so long, don't mess with these fictions, just talk about it. What's the situation?" "The teacher asks you to use the Uzumaki Kingdom War as the background to get a virtual training illusion," Sakumo said honestly. Puff tilde. Akaban almost squirted out a mouthful of old blood. He has never experienced this battle, so that's the reason why he was talking about it enthusiastically. I'll tell you the specific situation later, it's quite complicated. Sakumo sighed lightly. The course of the war can be said to be extremely tortuous and difficult to express in words. Akaban didn't think much, and said in passing, "Why don't you go back and think about it, draw the process so that I have a sense of the picture." "Draw it?" Sakumo was stunned and looked at his hand. "Is that what it meant to draw a comic?" "Almost, otherwise it is difficult for me to imagine the details of the process. If it is a simple illusion, I don't care, but all the details of the training fantasy must be perfect. In fact, the most perfect thing is that they should make an animation or something by themselves, but it is clear that Naruto World does not have such a technology for the time being, so they can only choose the second direction." This, okay, I'll go back and think about it. Sakumo is a very honest person, and it makes sense what Akaban said. Since he can't refuse, he can only agree to it after thinking for a long time. After he finished speaking, he immediately took out the comic at hand. One Piece. Sakumo now likes One Piece more than Naruto, and when he comes back, he can't wait to buy the chapters he hasn't read. After practicing the two-sword style, he began to walk farther and farther on the fancy road. In this regard, even Hatake Sagaki didn't say anything, instead, he helped. Facts have proved that Sakumo's blade technique is very terrifying on the battlefield. With his two-sword style, he was able to match the speed of lightning-style armor. And as a genin, he can even kill a named Chunin relying only on his two-sword style Chidori. So what can he say about such a record? Sakumo read a book happily and then went on to dig out another book from his pocket. He hadn't read it for a long time, and many of them had been forgotten, but when he read it again, the memory in his mind suddenly turned up. 3,000 Worlds. Seeing Zoro and Hawkeye fighting, Zoro's three-sword style 3000 Worlds in street fighting virtual illusion suddenly comes to his mind. Zoro's strongest attack that kills him in a second, this kind of strength is simply too strong. But now, even with this kind of big move, Zoro was still defeated by Hawkeye, and he was unable to resist. After reading this chapter, he didn't continue to take the next one, but paused and asked. "Speaking of which, how about Yiwu's sword clone research?" "I don't know. I only came back recently. I haven't seen him for many days," Akaban said. "I'll go back and have a look." Sakumo put the comics in his pocket and prepared to return to the Hatake clan. Yiwu's sword skills and speed are actually okay, but her physical fitness is a little worse. Sakumo hopes that Yiwu can also improve so that she will not be restricted by her physique and stay in place when fighting. He took a few steps, then suddenly stopped and asked, "If I want to learn to paint, should I learn the style of One Piece or the style of Naruto?" "It depends on personal preference. As long as you can draw some key scenes and battle scenes, I can recognize it a lot better," Akaban said. "Oh, good." Sakumo grabbed his short blade and turned away handsomely. "Well, this is normal for him." Akaban nodded secretly. Now he has someone who can help him solve the matter of fantasy games. The Dream Tapper family must be more than just a Dream Tapper that have the ability to make dreams. As long as there are comics, his little Tapper can start work there. Although there are no real five senses in it, it is better to be able to satisfy their needs, and as long as he pulls people into the dream state, the Dream Tapper can gain the dissipated spiritual energy, and they will definitely be happy. It's a win-win solution. Master, you haven't called me for a long time. Is there something for me to do that you need to call me out? Little Tapir showed no mercy in his question when he was called. Akaban sneered and said, "That's right, if not, why should I summon you out? To eat my spiritual energy? You can't say that. Last time you promised to give me spiritual energy." Little Dream Tapir was very dissatisfied. Sure enough, this guy is a big pig's hoof, he already forgot what he said before. Did I say it? Akaban thought for a while as if it really happened. The promise he made casually at the time, he didn't expect it would bite his ass now. He sighed and squeezed out some spiritual energy to feed. The little Dream Tapir gobbled up happily. Then it said excitedly, "Your energy purity is so high." Energy purity? Akaban is a little curious. What is this? Is there any difference in spiritual energy purity? Like your teacher, Shimura Danza, his total spiritual energy is only slightly worse than yours, but the purity is too poor, and it tastes like swallowing chaff. Little Tapir said in disgust. It tastes like chaff. This analogy is also decisive. Akaban thought for a moment, but it was not difficult to understand. He is good at illusion, and the quality of his spiritual energy from the system exchange is good, so the purity is obviously high. Since I have high purity, can someone stronger in your family be summoned? You are so pure. Others in the clan will definitely be happy to come, but you can't leave me behind. I am also very useful. I have recently practiced hard and have become stronger, and I promise not to steal your spiritual energy. Little Tapir was anxious. Is this the saying of after crossing the river then demolishing the bridge? Don't get me wrong, there are some things that require a lot of manpower, and you can't do it alone. Akaban explained. There are a lot of activities in the preparation department. The cooperation with the Dream Tapir can be performed for a long time, and the preparation department will be opened recently, and the venue will be the training base where the exhibition was opened. Of course. It's just that the area is not big enough. The surrounding forest has been transformed into a training stadium, and some simple teaching buildings have been built in the open space. Everything is simple for accommodation and meals. The only eligible buildings are the Research Institute and the Medical Department. Regardless of funding, most of the missions carried out by ninjas are in the wild, and it is impossible to have a safe and comfortable accommodation environment. After listening to Akaban's explanation, the little Dream Tapir nodded, his little eyes brighter and brighter. This is good. A group of genin. Although their spiritual energy is not strong, with their numbers, it is good enough. The more ninja there are, the more they can eat. More than that. He also thought of a question: since you came up with this kind of training method, you must not only need manpower here but do other departments need dream training? It does. Are you interested? This little guy usually didn't use his brain, but he is very clever when it comes to mental energy as it's his food. Akaban complained silently, took it to the store to pick up some comics, and then sent it away. In this regard, Kurama Yunlang felt another bitter resentment. Master, you are so generous, and sooner or later we will give away all the small profits. It's called a short-term view. Also, this free comic is an investment for future income. Akaban said and looked at Yunlang like he was an idiot. How can you worry about this little money? Isn't the opportunity to pay it back now? Before, Uchiha Yuan was still worried about illusion training, but now someone comes to offer their service, and the amount of money he can earn is definitely not small. It's a perfect interest. Thinking of this, Akaban went to the security team and talked to Uchiha Yuan, and the final bargain was completed with a price of 100,000 ryo a month. The comics cost less than 1/3 here. It's a good interest. Infinity not equal to infinity not equal to infinity not equal to infinity. After finishing his business, Akaban couldn't help but sigh when he thought about his next agenda. His comics update. The next plot is more sensitive, so he actually hesitated for a while. It's about Rasengan. The process of Rasengan training is relatively simple. Although he hasn't actually practiced with water polo or balloons, the principle is like this. As long as he has a higher talent, he should be able to do it. If he wants to follow the original creation, when the time comes, if all ninja in the ninja world wants to learn it, they will do the basic steps of using the balloon. That scene is going to be satisfying. But an A-level ninjutsu is not cabbage that falls from the sky. That's why he was hesitating. Going back to the lounge and thinking about it, he decided not to follow the original painting and modify the training process, and it's the training method of Konoha Maru. Akaban felt that his thoughts were very wonderful. If anyone in the world could comprehend the Rasengan training method from Konoha Maru's combination of seduction jutsu, then he would be really convinced that guy is a genius without a doubt. Of course, he added something in that training method which is harmless to the overall plot. Another point that he hesitated to change was the conditions Orochimaru asked Tsunade to offer. The revival of Kato Dan and Senju Kawaki. Akaban doesn't know where Kato Dan is now, but for Nawaki, he knows very well that the kid is not born yet. He didn't have much psychological pressure when he used the Senju clan on his comic. After all, he has a good relationship with Uzumaki Maito. The only thing to think about is Kato Dan. Although he doesn't know where Dan is now, it is clear that his participation has changed the story of the world. The medical class was established ahead of schedule. Although the medical ninja has not yet appeared, it is estimated that it will be on the agenda soon. As for Kato Dan, sorry, his role is gone. Akaban pondered for a long time but did not think of a more perfect alternative. At this time, his shadow clone has already started to draw the plot behind him according to his ideas. Seeing him so entangled, he couldn't help but vomit. Is there anything to consider? Can I just draw myself in? Is this appropriate? Akaban hesitated a bit. That's the identity of the lover. Wouldn't it be too much to replace it himself? Heh. His shadow clone sneered, too lazy to retort him, and began to paint by himself. A waterside pavilion gets the moonlight first, since his transmigration, isn't it the one who knows Tsunade the most and is the closest to her is him? Akaban was a little tangled. It seems a bit shameless to change the identity to himself, but thinking about it this way, it seems to be the best solution. After all, if he really draws Kato Dan, he still feels somewhat uncomfortable. Anyway, I said no. But my clone will still do things by himself, so I didn't bother to stop him. That's it. When Akaban thought of this, he suddenly relaxed. This solved another difficulty. Both problems are overcome, and then he can update with peace of mind. Beautiful. Due to his physical fitness getting stronger and stronger, the efficiency of the shadow clone is getting higher and higher. Akaban himself is not good at speed, but his hand speed is estimated to be a must in the village. By the afternoon, his shadow clone had completed the work of the 5 chapters and began to draw his own extra work. What is extra work? Akaban glanced at it, a little unwilling to draw this thing. He doesn't know exactly which one it is, but it should be a certain character from the Kafirim. In order to prevent his dishonest employee from peeking, after the painting was finished, Akaban summoned another clone to paint One Piece updates. After that, he sent all the finished updates of One Piece, and the other 2 comics to Yamano Izumi. The content is not too much, only 5 chapters on each side, plus a short story, so it should be printed quickly. Now that the war is almost over, Yamano Izumi is slowly going to relax and should be able to print as many quantities as possible quickly. And sure enough, the next morning, Yamano Izumi came in person. At the end of the war, he does not need to mass-produce ninja tools and weapons, so there is more spare manpower. In addition to the collection of some printed manuscripts from other factory pages, more than 200 copies have been printed out from the ones sent yesterday. The number of the previous books has also been made up a lot, so as not to sell out of stock in the village. When Akaban got up and came out to check, it was already noon. In the morning, his points soared by more than 6,000. When Akaban checked the comic shop, he was surprised to find that the comic in the shop was out of stock. Yes, they are all sold out and the shelves are empty. Seeing this situation, he couldn't help staying for a while, and his mind didn't turn around. Akaban was startled for a long time and gradually understood. The frontline ninjas are back. No wonder his points skyrocketed, it turned out to be the contribution of the ninjas in Anbu. After thinking about it, Akaban asked, "Have you urged Yamano-san?" Yes, Yamano-san said that he will print some of the previous goods. Try to send a wave in the afternoon. Kurama Yunlane was very happy, smiling as bright as a chrysanthemum. Well done, I don't need to remind you. Akaban nodded and then left a shadow clone to continue painting, thinking about how to deal with points. More than 6,000, he never acquired so many points in one go. However, the problem is that with these points, there doesn't seem to be much ninjutsu to redeem. Rasengan, a level ninjutsu, costs 500 points. One Piece has a lot of abilities, such as Zero's 3000 worlds, and Sanji's kicking moves. However, it is useless to change the 3000 worlds even though Akaban knows the 3-sword style, it is a fake style, without the speed and mouth that match it. He really wants to improve it, but even if his word skills are flawless, if his teeth are all broken after a battle, it is too disgraceful. Moreover, at Akaban's speed, his power is also greatly reduced. Forget it, I will keep it for now, I will wait first for the Sunin's battle, there are many ninjutsu to exchange at that time. Akaban mumbled as he didn't use it immediately. When Sunin fights, Yun Seal, Creation Rebirth, etc. Forbidden Jutsu needs a lot of points, and he can keep them first. No matter how bad they are, there are cellular activation, chakra scalpel, as well as the previous ice release, Chidori, etc. Anyway, there are many skills that can be redeemed, and with multiple skills in his arsenal, the more hidden cards he has. After he thought of it, Akaban didn't think about it anymore and instead thought of the little loli. He plans to go to Senju clan to see little Tomiko's situation. However, when he passed the bathhouse halfway, Akaban saw 2 familiar figures, one of which was of course Jiraiya, and what surprised him was the other person, Orochimaru. I didn't expect him to be like this. Orochimaru is really too deep that I didn't notice this side of him. Looking at the peeping Orochimaru, Akaban couldn't help muttering to himself. Akaban has always felt that only veteran drivers like Jiraiya and the third Hokage would frequently visit the sacred hall of the bathhouse. Unexpectedly, Orochimaru would also come to join in the fun today, but he was still very enthusiastic, and not shy at all. The sun is coming out from the west. He stared for a while. The two of them were engrossed and didn't notice anyone watching behind. Good boy, how come children have changed this much? Akaban couldn't help but sighed and walked towards them. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. Orochimaru, who was engrossed, also quickly noticed the sound as he twirled and hid behind Jiraiya, and then quickly turned into a snake and crawled into the grass. And it only took him a few seconds, which is astonishing. In contrast, Jiraiya was still engrossed in his peeking as he even grinned from time to time. Orochimaru already slipped away, but he was still looking, and he didn't notice anyone behind him. Akaban shook his head, too lazy to remind him as he turned to look for Orochimaru. Jiraiya peeking is not a weird thing. This is already etched on his bones. But Orochimaru is different. This workaholic usually has very few opportunities to leave his laboratory, let alone doing this kind of thing, so there must be something about his behavior. Akaban tracks Orochimaru with his perception. Orochimaru is very clever, and he knows to use several snakes to divert attention, while the true body does not move in the corner. However, the perception ability of the Uzumaki family is very useful. Akaban walked over, squatted down, and stared at the snake for a long time. Orochimaru saw that he couldn't hide, and awkwardly lifted transformation jutsu and appeared, his face flushed, and then scratched his head. In this posture, he looked like a kid caught making a mistake. He thought about it for a long time. His face turned red, and finally said in a puzzled way, "You can study the level of ninjutsu like Rasengan by looking at that kind of thing." When Orochimaru saw the update, he fell into self-doubt. Researching ninjutsu on his own has always been hard, as it always starts on making data, and finally trying to supplement previous shortcomings based on theoretical reasoning. It often takes hundreds of experiments to fill a certain defect. However, in the comic Naruto, who relied on seduction, came up with Rasengan's training method. So how can he not self-doubt himself? Well, everyone has a different understanding of things. In some people's eyes, using that kind of method, can they really comprehend Rasengan? To be honest, Akaban didn't understand it either. I really can't understand this kind of brain loop. I hope the fourth Hokage in your book didn't create Rasengan like this. Orochimaru said as he doubts his life. In that case, this ninjutsu is totally unscientific. Of course not, actually this technique. Akaban didn't say more as he raises his hand. Chakra gathered, and within a second, the blue sphere condensed by chakra appeared in his hand. Orochimaru's eyes widened, then looked up at Akaban incredulously, and asked in surprise. Could it be that this kind of training method is actually real? What are you talking about? Of course not. Akaban rolled his eyes. Rasengan's training method in the comic is too ridiculous. It depends on various ball training, and the probability of being researched by other people from other nations is too high if he published it, so it is necessary to pull out the funny training method of Konoha. After that, he explained the principle of Rasengan to Orochimaru. This part was originally mentioned by Jiraiya in the comic, but it was also deleted by Akaban to prevent this ninjutsu from becoming a popular jutsu in the world of ninja. It's not funny if all the ninja can use this A-rank ninjutsu, right? Orochimaru listened very carefully. After listening to the theory, he breathed a sigh of relief, as if his whole body relaxed in an instant, and said in a low voice and excitement, "This is indeed a subtle idea. Control the chakra to rotate, fluctuate and maintain its form. It is a chakra that changes in form. Yes. Communicating with smart people is simple. He doesn't need Akaban to talk about shape transformation, as Orochimaru has already summarized it himself. More than that, Orochimaru fell into deep thought for a few seconds and then said, "If I recall it right, you didn't add nature transformation to your ninjutsu just now. Would it be more powerful if you added the chakra nature change? It will certainly become more powerful. But the difficulty of shaping it will also become more difficult." Akaban did not deny it, as what he just showed was just the basic version of the Rasengan. Orochimaru fell into deep thought when he heard it. He was thinking more about the Rasengan, but at this moment, there was a scream in the bathhouse. Who is talking outside? Someone is peeking. It's Jiraiya again. I'm going to punch him all over, that idiot. Kill him. These speaking styles. For a moment, Akaban suspected Tsunade was inside, but in fact, she wasn't. It was a bunch of angry women who want to kill someone. Many of them are of ninja origin, put on bath towels in a hurry, and then used the transformation jutsu, and jumped out directly over the wall to surround Jiraiya. All of them was so agile as they didn't give the poor Jiraiya time to escape, as they hold Jiraiya's limb like a fat pig ready to be butchered. Jiraiya also wanted to escape, but there were too many angry women, and he didn't have time to make the seal. He felt he was wronged, and while being beaten, he shouted, "I didn't speak, and you must not hear my voice. There are other people here." "Right, where's Orochimaru?" He was confused, looking for the figure of Orochimaru in the rain-like fist. However, he didn't see the shadow of Orochimaru. 100 steps away, behind a rock, Akaban and Orochimaru emerged from the soil. I have to say that Earth style is really useful in this regard. The two witnessed the scene where Jiraiya was also madly beaten and inevitably shed a drop of crocodile tears. Fortunately, they slid fast, otherwise, not only their fame will be ruined but also they would be beaten badly if they were caught. Jiraiya is still shooting randomly. It seems very happy to be in close contact with a woman. Orochimaru mumbled as he was a little emotional. Happy? Which eye did you see Jiraiya very happy? Being beaten wildly by a bunch of young women wearing transformation jutsu, what he can see is not something he will enjoy, or is it possible that Jiraiya can see the essence through the surface? Akaban hesitated for a moment, but still said what's on his mind. I think he wants to find you. It's possible. Orochimaru was startled for a few seconds, then nodded in agreement. The next second, he turned around and flee. I can't stay in this place. After slipping a little further, Orochimaru tried to control chakra while walking. He is practicing Rasengan. However, without the aid of props such as a water balloon, a leather ball balloon and so on, it is really difficult to control the degree by yourself. Even though Orochimaru is very clever, he failed to master the Rasengan in a short time. With Orochimaru fleeing, Akaban also didn't stay any longer. If he was caught by this group of angry young women, it would be too much to pay. Akaban shrank his head, and then quietly left with a ninjutsu. Jiraiya was beaten badly. Fortunately, these young women are not strong enough, so the flattening is only on the surface, and there is no internal injury on Jiraiya's body. However, he still had some criticisms about Orochimaru's escape without saying a word to him. Don't teammates have to share difficulties at the same time? What a superficial teammate. He was indignant at this, and he hadn't noticed that Akaban had come before. HMPH, stupid Orochimaru, you left early, so you missed the significance of the jutsu perfectly. Just you wait, I will definitely defeat you with the ninjutsu that I just learned. Jiraiya smiled triumphantly. Although he was beaten up, it didn't discourage him as it always happened. Instead, he was ecstatic as he has already mastered the Rasengan ninjutsu. Thinking of his new mastered ninjutsu, Jiraiya staggered towards the village as he not only want to brag his new learned ninjutsu to his teacher but also report Sage Fukasaku instruction. Mount Myoboku has been forcibly hit by a wave of comic advertisement since the last time, so the residents of Mount Miboku has fallen in love with the comic. For this reason, Fukasaku Sage pondered hard, wondering how to trade with Konoha to obtain Ryo and manga, and finally came up with a plan: insect, toad oil. Mount Myoboku does have not many things to sell, as a toad is definitely not for sale. Then only the bugs and toad oil are left. For the insect, they can ask the Aburam clan, and also let them try their specialty insect meal. As for toad oil, there are so many functions their toad oil can do. In order to expand sales, the toads hope to open a store in Konoha, where Jiraiya or residents from Mount Miboku will personally participate in store management and item sales. Of course. As far as Akaban is concerned, at most, there will be some income coming from Toad's comics. This little money is just a drop in the bucket. The biggest headache for him now is not money, but how to deal with all kinds of situations after entering. After thinking about it, Akaban gritted his teeth and walked in. In the courtyard, there are not only Uzumaki Maito and Uzumaki Tomiko, but also many children of the Uzumaki family. They gathered together and listened to Uzumaki Maito's stories about the Uzumaki family. Seeing Akaban, Uzumaki Maito was not surprised, but pointed to the seat and asked him to bring one by himself. The children looked at him strangely, and Akaban looked calm. Isn't it just a seduction jutsu? Don't you just need to practice Rasengan in an alternative way? As for all of them, there is not enough education, otherwise, how can they make a fuss about nothing? In comparison, Uzumaki Maito is the calmest. She is very knowledgeable and has a deep understanding of ninjutsu, especially this type of ninjutsu that requires chakra control. She can see how to do it by looking at the model and basic principles. Especially for Kurama. The nature of Rasengan is actually a bit similar to a small-tailed beast ball, and there are many common grounds between the two. Therefore, after reading the comic, Uzumaki Maito understood why Akaban used this technique. Everything was to cover up the real practice method. Akaban is very calm, and at the same time, he secretly remembers the faces of these children. In the future, everyone will enter his reserve department. When the time comes, he must arrange treatment for them, not to hold a grudge, but to the future of Uzumaki clan. Akaban has always felt that only veteran drivers like Jiraiya and the Third Hokage would frequently visit the sacred hall of the bathhouse. Unexpectedly, Orochimaru would also come to join in the fun today, but he was still very enthusiastic, and not shy at all. The sun is coming out from the west. He stared for a while. The two of them were engrossed and didn't notice anyone watching behind. Good boy, how come children have changed this much? Akaban couldn't help but sighed and walked towards them. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. Orochimaru, who was engrossed, also quickly noticed the sound as he twirled and hid behind Jiraiya, and then quickly turned into a snake and crawled into the grass. And it only took him a few seconds, which is astonishing. In contrast, Jiraiya was still engrossed in his peeking as he even grinned from time to time. Orochimaru already slipped away, but he was still looking, and he didn't notice anyone behind him. Akaban shook his head, too lazy to remind him as he turned to look for Orochimaru. Jiraiya peeking is not a weird thing. This is already etched on his bones. But Orochimaru is different. This workaholic usually has very few opportunities to leave his laboratory, let alone doing this kind of thing, so there must be something about his behavior. Akaban tracks Orochimaru with his perception. Orochimaru is very clever, and he knows to use several snakes to divert attention, while the true body does not move in the corner. However, the perception ability of the Uzumaki family is very useful. Akaban walked over, squatted down, and stared at the snake for a long time. Orochimaru saw that he couldn't hide, and awkwardly lifted transformation jutsu and appeared, his face flushed, and then scratched his head. In this posture, he looked like a kid caught making a mistake. He thought about it for a long time, his face turned red, and finally said in a puzzled way, "You can study the level of ninjutsu like Rasengan by looking at that kind of thing." When Orochimaru saw the update, he fell into self-doubt. Researching ninjutsu on his own has always been hard, as it always starts on making data, and finally trying to supplement previous shortcomings based on theoretical reasoning. It often takes hundreds of experiments to fill a certain defect. However, in the comic Naruto, who relied on seduction, came up with Rasengan's training method. So how can he not self-doubt himself? Well, everyone has a different understanding of things. In some people's eyes, using that kind of method, can they really comprehend Rasengan? To be honest, Akaban didn't understand it either. "I really can't understand this kind of brain loop. I hope the fourth Hokage in your book didn't create Rasengan like this," Orochimaru said as he doubts his life. "In that case, this ninjutsu is totally unscientific." "Of course not, actually this technique." Akaban didn't say more as he raises his hand. Chakra gathered, and within a second, the blue sphere condensed by chakra appeared in his hand. Orochimaru's eyes widened, then looked up at Akaban incredulously, and asked in surprise, "Could it be that this kind of training method is actually real?" "What are you talking about? Of course not." Akaban rolled his eyes. "Rasengan's training method in the comic is too ridiculous. It depends on various ball training, and the probability of being researched by other people from other nations is too high if he published it, so it is necessary to pull out the funny training method of Konoha. After that, he explained the principle of Rasengan to Orochimaru. This part was originally mentioned by Jiraiya in the comic, but it was also deleted by Akaban to prevent this ninjutsu from becoming a popular jutsu in the world of ninja. It's not funny if all the ninja can use this A-rank ninjutsu, right? Orochimaru listened very carefully. After listening to the theory, he breathed a sigh of relief, as if his whole body relaxed in an instant, and said in a low voice and excitement, "This is indeed a subtle idea. Control the chakra to rotate, fluctuate and maintain its form. It is a chakra that changes in form." Yes. Communicating with smart people is simple. He doesn't need Akaban to talk about shape transformation, as Orochimaru has already summarized it himself. More than that, Orochimaru fell into deep thought for a few seconds and then said, "If I recall it right, you didn't add nature transformation to your ninjutsu just now. Would it be more powerful if you added the chakra nature change?" "It will certainly become more powerful. But the difficulty of shaping it will also become more difficult." Akaban did not deny it. As what he just showed was just the basic version of the Rasengan. Orochimaru fell into deep thought when he heard it. He was thinking more about the Rasengan, but at this moment, there was a scream in the bathhouse. "Who is talking outside?" Someone is peeking. It's Jiraiya again, I'm going to punch him all over, that idiot. Kill him. These speaking styles. For a moment, Akaban suspected Tsunade was inside, but in fact, she wasn't. It was a bunch of angry women who want to kill someone. Many of them are of ninja origin, put on bath towels in a hurry, and then used the transformation jutsu, and jumped out directly over the wall to surround Jiraiya. All of them was so agile as they didn't give the poor Jiraiya time to escape, as they hold Jiraiya's limb like a fat pig ready to be butchered. Jiraiya also wanted to escape, but there were too many angry women, and he didn't have time to make the seal. He felt he was wronged, and while being beaten, he shouted, "I didn't speak, and you must not hear my voice. There are other people here." "Right, where's Orochimaru?" He was confused, looking for the figure of Orochimaru in the rain like fist. However, he didn't see the shadow of Orochimaru. 100 steps away, behind a rock, Akaban and Orochimaru emerged from the soil. I have to say that Earth style is really useful in this regard. The two witnessed the scene where Jiraiya was also madly beaten and inevitably shed a drop of crocodile tears. Fortunately, they slid fast, otherwise, not only their fame will be ruined but also they would be beaten badly if they were caught. Jiraiya is still shooting randomly, it seems very happy to be in close contact with a woman. Orochimaru mumbled as he was a little emotional. Happy? Which eye did you see Jiraiya very happy? Being beaten wildly by a bunch of young women wearing transformation jutsu, what he can see is not something he will enjoy, or is it possible that Jiraiya can see the essence through the surface? Akaban hesitated for a moment, but still said what's on his mind. I think he wants to find you. It's possible. Orochimaru was startled for a few seconds, then nodded in agreement. The next second, he turned around and flee. I can't stay in this place. After slipping a little further, Orochimaru tried to control chakra while walking. He is practicing Rasengan. However, without the aid of props such as a water balloon, a leather ball balloon and so on, it is really difficult to control the degree by yourself. Even though Orochimaru is very clever, he failed to master the Rasengan in a short time. With Orochimaru fleeing, Akaban also didn't stay any longer. If he was caught by this group of angry young women, it would be too much to pay. Akaban shrank his head, and then quietly left with a ninjutsu. Jiraiya was beaten badly. Fortunately, these young women are not strong enough, so the flattening is only on the surface, and there is no internal injury on Jiraiya's body. However, he still had some criticisms about Orochimaru's escape without saying a word to him. Don't teammates have to share difficulties at the same time? What a superficial teammate. He was indignant at this, and he hadn't noticed that Akaban had come before. HMPH, stupid Orochimaru, you left early, so you missed the significance of the jutsu perfectly. Just you wait, I will definitely defeat you with the ninjutsu that I just learned. Jiraiya smiled triumphantly. Although he was beaten up, it didn't discourage him as it always happened. Instead, he was ecstatic as he has already mastered the Rasengan ninjutsu. Thinking of his new mastered ninjutsu, Jiraiya staggered towards the village as he not only want to brag his new learned ninjutsu to his teacher but also report Sage Fukasaku instruction. Mount Myoboku has been forcibly hit by a wave of comic advertisement since the last time, so the residents of Mount Miboku has fallen in love with the comic. For this reason, Fukasaku Sage pondered hard, wondering how to trade with Konoha to obtain Ryo and manga, and finally came up with a plan: insect, toad oil. Mount Myoboku does have not many things to sell, as a toad is definitely not for sale. then only the bugs and toad oil are left. For the insect, they can ask the Aburam clan, and also let them try their specialty insect meal. As for toad oil, there are so many functions their toad oil can do. In order to expand sales, the toads hope to open a store in Konoha, where Jiraiya or residents from Mount Mibaku will personally participate in store management and item sales. Of course. As far as Akaban is concerned, at most, there will be some income coming from Toad's comics. This little money is just a drop in the bucket. The biggest headache for him now is not money, but how to deal with all kinds of situations after entering. After thinking about it, Akaban gritted his teeth and walked in. In the courtyard, there are not only Uzumaki Maito and Uzumaki Tomiko, but also many children of the Uzumaki family. They gathered together and listened to Uzumaki Maito's stories about the Uzumaki family. Seeing Akaban, Uzumaki Maito was not surprised, but pointed to the seat and asked him to bring one by himself. The children looked at him strangely, and Akaban looked calm. Isn't it just a seduction jutsu? Don't you just need to practice Rasengan in an alternative way? As for all of them, there is not enough education, otherwise, how can they make a fuss about nothing? In comparison, Uzumaki Maito is the calmest. She is very knowledgeable and has a deep understanding of ninjutsu, especially this type of ninjutsu that requires chakra control. She can see how to do it by looking at the model and basic principles. Especially for Kurama. The nature of Rasengan is actually a bit similar to a small-tailed beast ball, and there are many common grounds between the two. Therefore, after reading the comic, Uzumaki Maito understood why Akaban used this technique. Everything was to cover up the real practice method. Akaban is very calm, and at the same time, he secretly remembers the faces of these children. In the future, everyone will enter his reserve department. When the time comes, he must arrange treatment for them, not to hold a grudge, but to the future of Uzumaki clan. That's it for this part, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. And also tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation. Thanks for watching.